Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Levin. Oh, good to see you out there in internet land. Mary Beth, welcome back. Great to be here, as always. Did I already say my name's Alex Levin? I'm here with on Sun and Moon Yoga Studios YouTube portal. We're here to explore a little bit of micro movement and meditate together. Sort of bring ourselves to center for a little while, about a half hour total. So yes, Tommy is active. They'll probably settle. Usually what happens as we practice and get quiet, the animals around us settle, don't they? So begin to get what you need, gather as I sort of tell you the lay of the land coming up. Get what you need if you haven't already for to be comfortable in we'll just be in a seated position for some micro movements, small movements to bring our attention inward and to help us in discerning. And then I'll talk a little bit, or I'll talk before that and during it, and then we'll meditate for about 8 to 10 minutes. So it's like I'm forgetting something. What's my topic today? I had several themes coming together. Oh, Samadhi Nirvana is what I labeled this. You might have heard those themes. Samadhi is like the absorption or integration, sort of the last limb of yoga, of the 8 limbs. And often said it's not something we can do, but we can prepare ourselves for prepare ourselves to make ourselves available for that state of integration and absorption or absorption. I've heard them translated both ways. And like a lot of concepts that I run across in the Eastern teachings, they have not even just koans, but some of the slogans or slokas or teachings, they have a bit of a riddle quality for me. I wonder if that's true for you. And so, what do we even mean? And so, what would that mean? Integration, absorption. In some ways, it can sound a little scary, like a loss of self, because if you're completely integrated with all around you, where is the self? And there's a bit of truth to that. Recently, I was hearing someone, I think it was the relationship psychologist that I've just begun to listen to, Real, Terry Real, Real. He's interviewed on with Tammy Simon on Sounds True. He gave a definition for mindfulness. Many of us have heard that term so often that sort of, once a term is sort of set, gelled, we go to the meaning that we've given it to that point so easily, but to stop and question that a little bit, to say what is it when we're being mindful? And I believe he said something like, it's what we're paying attention to, just seeing what we're paying attention to. And it was so helpful to think about that in that way. So earlier this week, I was thinking about polarization, and how that seems to be increasingly present and what do we mean by that word? What do we mean when we say that? So some of the things I feel and sense in that, and while I speak, you can be thinking yourself as well, is sort of a pulling apart, a separation, a isolation into two different realms, two different kind of like, what is it in math? Those lines, forgetting the term, I might remember it, that they go and they never meet. They never meet in space. So in our own experience, bring it personally home, aren't there many times when we feel, say, emotions or thoughts or emotions, and sort of blend those into felt senses that are contradictory, that don't seem, how could they possibly occupy the same space? And perhaps you hear me say that, and it's like, oh yeah, I experienced that, and other times, and maybe you think, well, I'm not sure if I do. We may have conflicting desires. So there is a way that wholeness, and again, I always feel like when I use this term, whether it's wholeness or um, the absolute or God or whatever you use a term to delineate to point to that, it's not it, and it's helpful. I mean, everything else we can give a name to, and so this way that many spiritual traditions honor the word, what is spoken, the labels we give things are so carry so much importance and weight that we should be attentive to how that what that is. And when we, like, just like I was saying with mindfulness, when we just take it at face value for so long, sometimes it starts to lose its meaning, just sort of like the word love or peace. And even so when we hear, many of you have heard this, Eskimos have so many different words for snow. And that's what's so then helpful, when we can be more specific, because then we know more, there's a greater feeling of what we're dealing with. So the practices we do in our this micro movement or meditation, both of them different practices, help us to feel when a concept, a word, or the way we're grokking our experience is not lined up, is not resonating, is not true to us anymore. And it's so worthwhile to pull back and examine that. Why? Why I sort of question, why do I say that? I know that in myself, I feel it in myself, but why? And maybe as you listen, you can explore in this inquiry part of our time together of what what is it that draws me to discernment, to this kind of coming home of meditation, to exploring and discerning what is this feeling that I'm labeling, calling, sensing as X, but something's not working. I think in whatever our close relations, in our family relations, in our communities, in our all levels of communities socially. So discerning, knowing that there's this oneness that is not of our making, as Eric Schiffman often says, that is it's already here, that unity, that and it's boundless, formless, boundless, timeless, wide open, boundless awareness, Wabo, that holds that and helps us to is also provides um, a light for us to see better. So when we can sense that spaciousness, that what we're looking at is something smaller than the wholeness, and it gives us the freedom, the space, the light to find out what that is. And once we take all those elements together, there is a feeling of that nirvana or samadhi that I know I hope, and I believe everyone's had tastes of, which I think is different than the more Western concepts, the more Judeo Christian concepts of heaven and hell. So, in the heaven and hell is still sort of the yin yang. So, as we practice our movement, as we practice meditation, as we get to observe and we see, oh, here's a pleasant feeling arising. And when we can observe it from this vantage point of wholeness, and it can still be, it's still actually very important to honor the fullness of that emotion, that pleasantness, however it shows up, or the feeling of the other kind of guest or that can arrive, the visitor that can arrive that might be something unpleasant, anger, confusion, boredom. And to fully, even though that is just a part, to fully receive that particular expression, that manifestation from our wholeness allows for a transformation, allows for integration. And these are all words, words, words. So let's get to the practice. I'm going to repeat a practice, might have been just last week's, and I am finding this practice so helpful when I wake up in the morning. There's things that happen at night. Oh, and before let's backtrack a little bit. Let's make sure we're really comfortable. And I intended to do this at the very beginning. So I'm going to change the position of where my leg's been for 10 minutes, and you could do the same. You can be laying down, sitting, legs up the wall, any position, lying on your side. If you've been listening, engaged, and sensing into your own experience, those have all been doorways into arriving right here, right now. And that's what I'm inviting us to arrive right here, right now. In our bodily sense, in our heart emotional sense, in our breath sense. And I had a shift this week where usually my first doorway is to come in through the physical body. Sound is where I needed to enter, through sound. So I use ground, sound, breath, but ground is usually my first. And that's how it felt today. But now I'm taking in sound. So in ground, it's wherever your body's touching the ground, but also sort of a scan down through the body. Or a more Pac-Man-ish, just roving around the body is fine too. Painting it in, as Madeline would say. Sound and ground together. So what came to me strongly this week, and perhaps you've had tastes of this or are feeling it as well, is an integration of sound and ground, that together, by having enough opening in my sensing, my skill, practice, that I could hold both ground and sound together. I'd like to say it felt like a growth or an expansion of capability. So they're separate, but they're also not separate. And then breath. And just let yourself, to the degree you can today, more and more be fully here. My eyes are closed. What may arise as we allow ourselves or invite ourselves to be more and more fully here is um, in part, there may be a sense of the heaviness, the presence, and there almost also may be resistances to being fully here. And there's a way we relate to those, to both the presence feeling and the resistances. And those can shift. So part of my resistances are some tightness in the shoulders, some higher energy in my eyes. And my feel of those, my knowing of those, as I just fold in and welcome that, just continually welcoming that they're just part of the presence now, that they're also here. For me, there's often a restlessness that's also a form of resistance. I don't sense it now, but I'm just throwing it out there for the indexing. And so we're, in a sense, we've been doing this micro movement of our attention to these various factors and guests that are present here within each of us, practicing together. And now bring your attention specifically to your eyes without giving up the context of ground, sound, breath, full presence. Take the eyes, with eyes closed, up to the 12 on a clock and take them in a clockwise, slow clockwise rotation. Slow, so that we're aiming for exploring and going, letting this movement be smooth, harmonious. Slow, I've just completed one round, one circle. Let's take another one. If you're going faster, that's fine. Slower, it's fine. But similarly, as we take this path, just welcoming, some parts go smooth, some parts may feel darker, some may feel lighter. Just see, we're looking and with this attention to this slow movement, slow, small movement, we're discerning, we're seeing what's really here, the light of our attention. Okay, when you next come up to the 12, just let your eyes rest. Sense, go back into a more fullness of yourself. Sort of, what is that even? Right here, right now. And then let's do this again a couple times in the other direction. Eyes going up to the 12. And I'm going to do an experiment. I think I always do this with my eyes closed, but I'm going to do it with my eyes open, just because I always give that as an option. But I think I rarely, if just not remembering if I've ever done it myself this way. Going counterclockwise to you, my movement will look, if you're looking at me, will look will look clockwise. It's hard for me to go slow with eyes open. Much clunkier. I'm going to do one round with my eyes closed. So interesting. Mm. When you're ready to come to a stop, let go of that. Sense the wholeness of your body. Has anything changed from before? And it's so fascinating to me that even if I didn't prepare us to note, oh, we'll be looking for what's changed. Although I did say discernment, we were looking at discernment. So that our minds, this is a huge, wonderful skill of our minds that's even can discern gross differences, but also more and more subtle differences. With this is a training we're doing for that. And it just depends what we care about and where our attention is as well. And so from here, you might have landed at a place where you're just ready to be still and slide into meditation. If not, if you feel like you need to shift something to now prepare yourself to be still, stillness, which is a whole chapter on it unto itself, because it doesn't have to be perfect stillness. And as Jackie likes to remind us of Eric Schiffman's phrase, be still without holding yourself still. Another koan. So we slide now to the approximately 8 minutes of meditation. So if you haven't yet set up for your posture, and I usually have my legs crossed, right foot in front, my right foot and ankle in front of my left, my hands in cosmic mudra. But today, one leg is extended, one bent, one hand on my leg, one hand on my dog. You can reach back through the guidelines to the portal of being here, sound, ground, breath. And just like the terms mindfulness and any general term or one that we've used a lot, these three terms, ground, sound, breath, can start to be lose meaning just by not listening in to them through wholeness. So meaning when we receive the cue of to receive it not only through the mental faculty, but through sensing, feeling, body, cells, blood, aliveness. So whenever you sense a sense of full presence, just rest there. If you find the mind labeling or resisting, the moment you discover that is a celebratory event. Just before any labeling, the primary experience, the raw experience of wholeness is available. And then more and more, any other arisings in language, words, emotion, body sensations, and usually they come, of course, they have all those components. Start to also see what's the sticky quotient? What's the relational quality of our self-observing that part of us? More and more we discern what's a conditioned response or an egoic response, part of the sticky, like a self-praise or a self-doubt or a start to see those as just a part, no problem with them. A few more breaths in our stillness. And so we conclude our practice together. Thank you so much for joining me for the inquiry, the movement, and the stillness. And If you need to run, that's fine. I just wanted to add a note about, I mentioned earlier why the eye movement I've been um, using it as a practice when I wake up because I'm finding it offers great release and relief from a tension I've been having, waking up with a sore neck, almost like an arthritic neck where I can barely turn or lift my head. And I think that it's coming from a pressing of my tongue during the night, like pressing against the roof of my mouth or something. So there's some kind of tension in the night. And what I've found, I I I should do something before I go to sleep about that. I think sometimes making sound, or just, I've talked about it in my teachings. I've used just sort of before sleep to bring some mindfulness to the ear, nose, throat areas, and using sound, whether even out loud or just vibration of feeling in those cavities, or moving the tongue around. But what I discovered, I just tried this one morning of moving my eyes, doing these slow circles and looking for the smoothness, sort of like a massage, an inner massage of the front of my skull. And it helps. It helps relax something in the neck and the musculature there. So that's one reason, but it's not the only reason. It's probably the bigger reason is the awareness of it. And I had something else I wanted to share, but I've forgotten. So I'll sign off today. Thanks. Good to have all of you back who are back from vacations. And do check out sunandmoonstudio.com to see all the exciting news and all the offerings for fall. Oh, and I'll be teaching a class in person on Thursdays at noon, meditative movement. So much like what we do here, probably a little bit more movement on the ground, moving our bodies a little bit more, but with the same attention to the subtle, um, so that we integrate and more make ourselves available for the integration that's already here. Ciao, ciao. See you next time.